Joshua Fred Mata, de Centro Filipinas. Él es el secretario general del Sindicato Nacional Centro NG MGA NACA CAISA at Progressive Point. I'm so sorry, now you say, pronounce, I'm so sorry. Managua, Centro, and Filipinas.
Yay! You made it! Okay, can I just stand up? I'm just sitting too long and I'm starting to sleep. No, not because of you guys, but I'm coming from another part of the world, all right? So, good morning everyone, my name is Joshua Mata and I'm Secretary General of Centro, and I'll speak slowly. Well, I'll try. I'm not supposed to be here to start off. No, we actually wanted to send riders or leaders of riders, but many of them don't have the passport nor the visa to get here. While you guys, SEIU, are very welcoming, your country is really not. So let me tell you about their story. We actually don't know how many riders there are in the Philippines today. Even the government doesn't provide the statistics that we need. But I can imagine that we might have already hit more than 1 million. And there are several platform companies. All of them are working, competing in delivering food. There are those that are delivering, there are those in the logistics company delivering parcels. But I'll talk about food delivery. There are three major companies out of these many companies. One is Grab, based in Singapore. The other is Foodpanda, which is a subsidiary of Delivery Hero. And there's a Russian company called Maximus. Grab is such a big company that it was able to buy out Uber a few years back in Manila. That's how big it is. Now, they employ workers. Sorry, I should qualify that. They hire independent contractors. Like many of you, they are not riders are not considered as employees. Rather, they are considered as independent contractors. And many of them actually buy into the myth that they are indeed independent. Why? Because many of them are so afraid that when they are considered as regular employees, they will only end up earning minimum wage in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, when you talk about the minimum wage, it's basically poverty wage. It's just enough for you to feed yourself so that you can go back to work the next day and be exploited all over again. Now, this whole situation of being an independent contractor has led to many of the things that have already been said by my colleagues in the panel. And I'll just echo a lot of the things that you have said. Most riders are male, that's about 95%. The largest group would be in the age of 26 to 35 years old. Sorry, I'm too fast. Many of them, a large group of them would be high school graduates, followed by college graduates. 81% of them, and these are statistics that came from our own study. We did our own survey before we started organizing them a year ago. And 81% of them are working practically full-time as food delivery riders. 98% of them own their own vehicles. And they work 10 to 11 hours a day. When you calculate the incomes that they get, it's actually below the minimum wage in the Philippines per hour. That is, if you subtract their expenses like food, electricity, gasoline, and for example, the payment for their data. Now, and like most of the, and like you guys, like what I've heard from you, they don't have any insurance at all. No, 80% of them don't have insurance. No, and even if 20% of those that we interviewed have had accidents. Now, that obviously creates a huge problem. In Grab, for example, you could be insured, but you need to deliver a certain amount of, you need to do a certain amount of deliveries first, like a quota, before you get to be qualified as an qualified for an insurance. But that can only be applicable to you after you, like 15 minutes before and after a delivery. That's the only period where you are qualified for such a limited insurance. And workers end up paying for the premium of that insurance, not the company. Incredible, huh? Incredible. So, but that's just an example. So in about two months ago, there was a member of the union that we have been organizing in a city in Manila, in Mindanao, in the southern part of the Philippines, called Cagayan de Oro, where he was actually run down by a driver, a hit and run accident. His motor vehicle burned together with half of his body, and Food Panda never even provided insurance until such time that the riders in the city, whether from Food Panda, Grab, or any other platforms, banded together and actually mobilized in order to shame the company, which eventually paid him some form of insurance, which was not disclosed, unfortunately. How much? So that's the kind of problem that you have when you don't have insurance. Like many of you, they have no decision making, they have no participation in decision making, none at all. In many cases, like in Food Panda, for example, the German subsidiary, workers don't even have an idea of how much they are being paid per delivery, because there's no what's this delivery rate that's been published. You know, there's no clear, there's no clarity. So there's no transparency how much they get in terms of income. And when they're medical, and when they receive complaints, as you know, there's no due process at all. They find themselves being suspended without even having the chance to explain themselves. Now, the idea, what I wanted to add this morning, is that the idea of being an independent contractor in the Philippines can get workers into such an extreme and ridiculous situation, such that, first, in Davao City, because the riders are considered as independent contractors, meaning they are independent businesses, the city end up asking them to pay for business permit, each one of them. And our suspicion is that this is actually the business permit of the company that's passed on to the worker. Now, that's not the only ridiculous thing that you can find in the Philippines. In another city, in Cebu City, which is in the middle part of the Philippines, riders, because again they are independent contractors, riders are being asked by 3 cities, like 3 contiguous cities, no? They're close together. They're being asked to pay an annual permit for delivery. On that's about 1,000 pesos or $20, a little over $20 every year for every city. So if you want to deliver in 4 cities, then you have to pay every city, you know, for you to be able to. It's incredible, right? It's just incredible. It's ridiculous, but that's because that's the whole idea of being presented as an independent contractor. So that's a problem. Now, the good news is this. The good news is riders in the Philippines are fighting back, and they are working together, and we find them, and we actually find many of them really do self-organizing and fighting back. No? And that's exactly what we in Centro have been trying to do. We're supporting these efforts and we're building up on these efforts. In particular, we've started building the union, and we're building a union. We don't want to build workers as an association. We don't want to build a club. It's a union. We wanted to build a union where people actually pay their dues and they actually believe that they run their own organization. Sorry to the interpreters if I'm speaking too fast. Because we believe that I think it's so important to impress this on them. And the way to do this is that they have started to craft their Charter of Rights. Essentially a list of the rights that they should enjoy as a rider. And essentially these rights are exactly the same rights that other workers are enjoying in the Philippines under our labor code. And the idea is that it really, just to get around the whole debate, because people are debating whether they should be regular employees or they should be independent contractor. What the writers are now saying, Writers Filipinas are now saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you are employee, consider yourself as employee or consider yourself as independent contractor. Everyone should enjoy the basic standards that are provided for by the labor code. The basic trade union rights, the basic workers' rights and labor standards. And that's what we are campaigning for. And we're doing this by pushing for legislation at the national level. We're trying to do this by pushing for local legislation at the city level, province level. And hopefully, eventually, the idea is, if we keep organizing, we will be able to mass up enough, we would be able to create enough critical mass to force the company to negotiate with us. So that's the idea. Now, the bad news is the companies are learning to fight back. I think we should learn, and this is what I wanted to share, because I'm pretty sure this is something that you may not, if you're not experiencing right now, you will eventually experience. And how are they fighting back? Well, in the Philippines, we found many of our leaders many of the leaders of the riders who would lead actions, they would find themselves eventually off-boarded, meaning that's the term that we use to say that you cannot log on to your app. We managed to fight back by shaming the company, and then they are onboarded again. Or sometimes they can log on, but they realize that after a day, there's no customer coming into there's no deliveries, no business. We call that shadow banning. And is that the word you use? It's also the word you use. Okay, we use the same word, shadow banning. We should have our own glossary of the things that they do, so that we're on the same page when we communicate with each other. And then finally, but the worst part is that some of our riders actually find themselves receiving a message the next day after we do an action where they are permanently suspended. Incredible, permanently. They even had the word permanent in it. So that's we're still fighting that, legally even. We're winning some legal battles. Already we have some local victories where the local courts have said that the riders should be considered as regular employees, as employees. That's great. But then in the Philippines, yes, I know. In the Philippines, I'm about to wrap up. In the Philippines, when a law is applied, when a law is used, it could be so tedious that companies can claim, but Grab is different from Foodpanda is different from this. So there's no universality in application of the law. So we have to wait for a Supreme Court decision on this. So that's the way they were winning. But however, the biggest problem that we're facing right now is that we are organizing riders in a situation where there is still a climate of impunity against trade unionism in the Philippines. The Philippines has been consistently listed since 2017 by the ITUC Global Rights Index as one of the 10 worst countries in the world for workers. Incredible, incredible. We are world class in destroying workers' rights. So that's a problem. 68 trade union leaders have been killed since 2016. Not a single one of them have received any justice at all. So this is the context where we are fighting. But the riders are not afraid. They continue to fight. They work very closely. We work very closely with Solidarity Center. We work closely with the IUF, International Union of Food and Allied Workers. And I'd like to end with a slogan that's similar to what we heard earlier, but this is the one that's used by IUF. We say, organize, fight, win. Let's repeat it. Organize!
Organize.
Oh, sorry, unify, fight, win. Organize!
Fight, win.
Organize!
Fight, win.
Thank you very much.